you were at the studio for 6 years, and in that time became super accomplished performer, super accomplished composer, super accomplished teacher. And not only that, but then you went on to go to school for music composition,
Yes.
which I think is all just very exciting. So I wanted to just make sure I wanted to set the framework here. So okay, so if you can think back all the way to when you were that 12-year-old girl starting piano lessons, do you remember what it was that you were wanting to, why were you starting piano lessons?
So my family had just inherited a piano from my great grandmother. It was 113 years old and missing one of its keys and dreadfully out of tune. But I started just picking out tunes on it by ear and playing around just like by myself. And my parents heard me doing it and they were like, maybe we should get her lessons. So they asked me and I was so excited about it.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any specific goals in mind. I just loved making music and I wanted to get better at it.
Yeah. How long was that time period of where you were just experimenting on the piano, playing before you actually started getting lessons?
Maybe like 2 months, 2 or 3 months, I think.
Okay. Well,
hmm
what was like your favorite thing you figured out how to do?
Well, this I did look up a tutorial for, and I feel like a lot of people start with this one. It was Carol of the Bells, because I
Yes.
think getting closer to Christmas time,
Yes.
and I looked up a tutorial for Carol of the Bells, and that's when I kind of learned hand independence. Like I've
Mm.
always described it as like almost sort of having to break the connection between your hands so that they can do different things. And
Yeah.
then after that, it just felt like I was a lot freer to play different pieces.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, do you remember what excited you specifically about starting lessons at 232? Was there a certain draw to it? What made you excited about that?
Yes, there was. It was you because I was so picky with my teachers. And like a teacher could make or break an experience for me. And
Yeah.
I like hated some of my teachers and I just did not learn anything in their classes. So when I had my first lesson with you, you were just so like open and warm and welcoming. But I also felt like you were so encouraging of like ear training and different things like that. And I just felt so at home, like just instantly. So
Hmm.
that's what drew me to 232.
That's that's great. What gives you joy about music?
I guess that you can express yourself without words. That's kind of cliche, but I feel like you can express feelings that can't be expressed in words. Like there are just some deep feelings inside, and I don't think even poetry could express them. But when you hear something or you're playing something, you can feel it like in your chest, like you know what this is.
100%. That was my experience. That was what drew me when I first started playing. Because you and I have fairly similar backgrounds in how we started. Started first by just being drawn to the piano and just connecting with being able to create sound. I just distinctly remember being able to draw out or express feelings that I never had been able to just with my words. But
hmm
I could sit at the piano and I just was like creating these things that made me feel so deeply, right? And the connection there. So I want to ask you a few questions just about when you think through the whole experience at 232. So these are fairly broad, but just whatever comes to mind is great. So how would you say you grew as a person during your time at 232?
I mean, there's a lot of ways I feel like I did. I think piano was the very first thing, like outside of school, that I kind of devoted myself to, and it taught me a lot of structure and discipline. So that's something that has stayed with me for like ever since I started when I was 12.
Hmm.
I learned a lot of lessons from that. And then as a teacher, definitely like patience and trying to see things from like your student's point of view and figuring out how to explain something to someone on their level. So that was really important.
What was that experience like going from piano student and piano player, musician, to getting called up into now you're teacher. What was that
Hmm.
experience like for you?
Well, it was strange because I felt like I was still a student, so I wasn't really very sure of myself at first. I felt like, what right do I even have to teach these people? They're only like 3 years younger than me. What am I doing? So I think part of it was gaining confidence in my own abilities to teach people, but then staying humble enough and like remembering what it's like to be a student so that you can connect with the students on their level.
How did you feel supported as a musician or as a teacher while you're at 232?
I felt very supported in both ways. With you as my teacher, you always encouraged me to pursue any of the music repertoire that I wanted to play, and you always encouraged me to like develop my ear for playing. I had heard before I started lessons, there were some teachers and they were like, "Oh, I hate it when students pick out songs by ear because you have to like retrain them completely." And so I feel like you were just so encouraging of creativity and experimentation and expression. So that was fantastic. And then as a teacher, I think you were always like the whole studio really was always very open to accommodating me if I ever needed anything, but also if I ever stumbled or I needed some direction, it was always very gentle but clear on what I needed to do better.
Obviously, we do lessons in a group environment. Can you think of a favorite collaborative experience you had?
I mean, I guess it was probably all the recitals, like not so much performing, but working as part of a team to create something that is so important to like the kids and the 232 community was really amazing.
That's great. I wouldn't have thought of that angle, that side of it. But yeah, our goal with recitals has always been how do we accomplish this together as opposed to it just being based off of, one person or one.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you felt that. Here's another kind of,
Uh-oh, you're trying to stump me.
yes, I'm trying to stump you. What ways have you been able to use music to serve others?
I mean, I guess the obvious answer would be as a teacher, because you're helping your students gain this skill that they can then go and use as a form of self-expression. I'd say that's the main way.
Well, I'll have you know that you're sharing your gift was a tremendous service to me and to so many of the other students at 232 because I think, well, one, you're just so talented. And I think every time
Thank
you
you.
performed, there was someone else who got something from that, who you inspired. But then you were also an inspiration because of the steps that you took from student to teacher.
Mhm.
And I think probably you use music to serve in more ways than you even know. I think it was probably a service to your family and the way you played and filled your house with music. It was definitely a service to your dog who would sing along with you.
Yes, that's true. Cooper, he loves it so much.
All right, I've got one last question for you. Does any particular moment or aspect stand out to you as life-changing from your time at 232? And it's okay if you start to feel like a little bit like a broken record if a similar answer comes up.
I think probably when one of my students told me that she like looks forward to a lesson with me as her teacher like every single day. And then after that, she like hugged me and then ran across the hall. And I had to like hold back tears. It was amazing
Hmm. And
knowing how much I can like touch someone's life.
yeah, you have the power to do that, right? You've been given that gift and it goes so much further beyond just you, right?